The effort by Republicans to keep pressure on the Biden administration for its chaotic mismanagement of the southern border actually appears to be paying off as border security negotiations continue trending, and I'll use that word purposefully, in the right direction. Oklahoma Senator James Langford is leading the Senate negotiations, and he's expecting sometime this week for the language to come out, and he's going to be talking about some of that, in fact, with the House Republican Study Committee to discuss the deal. And he says we're making significant progress on the southern border. Well, joining me now to discuss this and more is Congressman Mark Alford. He serves on the House Armed Services Committee as well as the Agricultural Committee, and he represents the 4th Congressional District of the great state of Missouri. Congressman Alford, always great to have you on the program. Good to see you.
Thank you, Jody. Good to be with you.
All right. Well, you recently were on the border with Speaker Johnson and a number of your colleagues. We are, as I just mentioned, expecting some language for a possible border security deal later on this week. But from your experience, what you saw, tell us what that experience was like for you.
Well, I certainly will. I am eager to see this information, this deal that's been struck that Senator Langford's working out. I am a member of the Republican Study Committee, so I'll be seeing that as well as the other House members. But look, it is so important. Finally, Jody, the Democrats have gotten on board with this and figured out that we have to secure our border. This has been languishing for years. You know, with a wink and a nod, President Biden has welcomed almost 9 million illegal aliens into our nation. We welcome legal immigration. Legal immigrants are part of the fabric of America, but this process, this crisis, this chaos is ripping apart America right now. And so what we saw, some 60 of us who went down with Speaker Mike Johnson to the border last week, we saw firsthand the chaos that this administration, Secretary Mayorkas, who needs to be impeached, will not classify as a crisis. They call it a challenge. Look, this isn't selling used cars. It's not a challenge, Secretary Mayorkas. This is a crisis that you and President Biden created. We saw the processing center, a 9-step process where illegals come in 1,500s a day in the Del Rio sector. They are processed. It takes about 36 hours. Roughly 90% of them are released into the interior of America after that. If you have a chronic illness, say kidney failure, you're on dialysis, or perhaps you have cancer, they take you to San Antonio, to a hospital there, check you in, and the VA picks up the tab. Yes, illegal aliens are getting preferential treatment over our veterans. We saw illegal aliens right as we're standing there, Jody. We were by the Rio Grande River, just feet away, and 11 illegals from Venezuela made their way across the Rio Grande into our nation, tried to cut the concertina wire where we were standing right there. This is a humanitarian crisis. We've got to secure the border.
We absolutely have to secure it. And I've been to every sector. I've seen much of what you saw, but what you just described just now, Congressman, even goes beyond some of the things that I witnessed personally. And it is phenomenal. It is unthinkable that this type of thing is happening in the United States of America. Now, you mentioned a moment ago that you believe Democrats are beginning to recognize this as a problem for what it actually is. Do you seriously believe that? Do you think the Democrats are starting to catch on that the southern border is indeed a national security crisis?
They have known this for a long time. They do not want to admit it because they want these illegals to eventually become voters. And in the meantime, they're certainly going to be counted in the 2030 census and could tip the balance of power in the U.S. House. It only takes 750,000 people to make up one congressional district. You do the math. Illegals who are in our nation will be counted in the 2030 census. They want those people here not to be a part of the fabric of America, but so that they can give them things through the government, health care, legal protections, load them up with all the goodies, and then guess who they're going to favor in any election they might be able to vote for? It's going to be Democrats. I think it's despicable what this administration has done, creating this humanitarian crisis. One more thing about what we learned on this trip. $32 million a week is going back to the cartels who are ferrying these people over. It's anywhere from $5,000 to $8,000 per trip for these individuals, and they don't have that money. So they go to work in the human sex trade here in America so they can pay off their debt to these cartels. 100,000 children are unaccounted for in America in this process. That's despicable.
It is unbelievable. 32 million a week that the cartels are bringing in. That's more. And that's just in that sector, which in 1 week is more than the budget for that sector for the entire year. And at least that was the case when I was there, and it's unreal. Listen, speaking of national security, if I can switch gears on you real quickly, what in the world is going on with national security at the Pentagon when we have the Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin keeping a secret from the president that he's in the hospital?
Well, being a member of the Armed Services Committee, I'm hoping that we get a briefing on this. This is unacceptable for someone who's in the chain of command, the Secretary of Defense, to not give an account of where he is. I'm not really surprised that President Biden didn't know the whereabouts or where Secretary Austin was. I don't think the president knows himself where he is half the time. But this is inexcusable. We have an inept administration. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin is part of that. And we need change. And that change is coming. And that's why I endorsed today President Trump for president once again in the United States of America. He's going to bring about that change.
Yeah, it's it's a sad reality, and it really underscores sad when you talk about the president. I'm sure you saw him having trouble getting off the stage yet again this past week. If I can hit on this one last, Congress is coming back this week. I know you've got a lot of plates spinning. A lot is taking place, but on the final details, what are you hearing about the spending bill?
Well, look, I haven't been able to read the text. It has not been offered to us yet as members of Congress. Just a brief summary. There was no border security attached to that. That is my number one concern. Number two concern and number three concern right now is secure the border, whatever it takes to secure the border. That being aside, I did not vote for the FRA, and I did not vote for a continuing resolution this time. And basically, this is a package that lumps those two together. The FRA numbers at $1.6 billion of spending through October, and then this continuing resolution. So I'm not, it's not looking good. Look, you can put lipstick on a pig, but I'm not kissing this pig.
Well, it sounds like there's a lot of work yet to be done in getting this whole spending bill addressed, all the appropriations bills across the finish line, and avoiding a potential shutdown. We will be keeping a pulse on it all. And Congressman Mark Alford, as always, it's an honor to see you. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule to join us on Washington Watch.